People have been asking me if I would do a video on the owner installed solar that I just completed on my own house. And I wrote down a few questions here, and then I'm including the video. Well, there's some videos I took along the way to show, the just a brief overview of how it went. So the first question I have here is, can I do the installation of solar on my house? And the answer is yes. And most states I've seen that their power companies will have an option for doing an owner installed system. So, and that's not an exception in Arizona where I live. My power company is APS, so they can let you do that. Do I need to be an electrician or work in construction to be qualified to install my own solar? The answer to that is no. The county and or the city and APS doesn't really care what you are or what your qualifications are. I myself am not an electrician or work in construction. I am an electrical engineer, but my knowledge is mostly in metrology and I guess computer architecture, so that doesn't really help all that much. Um, So it does help to, have some resources, especially when you're installing, have another person to help with the panels and things like that. That's a big help. I did get a little help from some family and friends. So how much money can I save doing an owner installed solar? So I got a bunch of quotes from companies, and I figured out that basically for the same type of system, I was only going to pay less. I was going to pay typically less than 30% of what a installation company would have charged me. So that's kind of huge when it comes to the type of money you're paying for a solar installation because it's an investment. How much time did it take? Now, um, this is a little weird for me because I having a full-time job and three little kids and a pregnant wife. I could only work on it every so often, and but I just had one of my brother or friend family members just had solar installed by a company, and they had four guys show up. It took them one day, I guess somewhere between 10 and 12 hours to do the installation. So that was like, you add that up, that's 40 to 48 hours. It probably took me a little bit longer than that because, learning and don't have all the good tools and stuff like that that they may have. So I would say, between 50, 60 hours. So it took me several weekends. And then I had some time off in Thanksgiving, so I worked on it then. Let's see. Where do I purchase the equipment? There's plenty of solar wholesale companies. Most of them seem to be in California. Um, I purchased mine from Tandem Solar. I did shop around quite a bit. They seem to have the best pricing on the equipment. A lot of other companies like Solar Wholesale or Wholesale Solar and Go Green and others like that. The pricing is competitive, but they also offer things like they would help you with your plans and give you some extra stuff that normally like I just bought at Home Depot. Um, how do I finance it? So there's a few different ways. Um, the reason that most people go with solar or are okay with solar is because they do like home equity type loans that are 20 years long, and the cost of solar is so high. But then when you spread it out across 20 years, um, it typically makes your electric bill plus your payment or lease on the solar less than your original electric bill was. So there's plenty of sites or places out there. I was talking to a few of them that will do a loan against your equity or your house or something like that, and then they can stretch it out for 12 to 15 years. If you have enough money to do a short-term loan, you can go to a credit union and get like a 6-year loan, but that's going to cost quite a bit more, and then you're going to end up paying quite a bit for your solar and electricity. So it's talking, if you have a credit card with enough credit or, room on that, you can put it on that. That's going to be super high interest. Um, or you could just pay it outright if you've got enough money saved up and it's a small system or whatever. So, and the next one is, do I need special tools or software? I didn't have any special software. I got my software for designing my plans for free. Um, I, you just need typical tools like drill, sockets, stuff like that. Yeah, wire strippers and it helps you can go if you can borrow like a pipe bender. That's probably the strangest thing. Oh, plus a angle grinder to cut tiles if you're doing a tile roof. That was something that I didn't have. I just ended up borrowing. Seems like everybody knows someone who's got tools. So do I still get my tax rebates? Like as if you same as you go to a like Solar City or somebody like that. The answer is yes. I haven't gotten mine yet because I just barely finished. But everything is there's nothing that says that an owner's installed system doesn't get tax credits the same as if it was done by somebody else. You just don't get it on the labor because that'd be basically double dipping, I guess, into that. So, and how do I get started? So that is where we come to the secret location on APS's website. So I can go to that. If I go back to the APS.com, um, I couldn't find this at all until I talked to them. You can call your power company, and they will point you to the owner install because sometimes it's pretty well hidden. So if you go to solar info and then go to interconnect to grid, that's where this site comes up, and then it shows things here for doing the owner installed system and documents and stuff like that. So if you go down, scroll down to the residential, um, this this list right here called the self installer guide. That's the one you want to go to, and you want to follow these steps. There's 4 steps here that you just follow, and it gets you going. You have to create another account and say that you're the installer, and then there's 4 steps. It's installation and things like that. So if I go back to APS website, they have documents in here. Typical, like these sample documents are pretty helpful. So almost everyone in my area has 200 amp service, residential, and load side tap, like it says here. That's if you don't have any more room in your panel. So this one right here that says load side connection, that's the drawing that shows the documents that you would need. And so if I open that up, oh, that's not the right one. Let me go back to that. So APS, I think it's called 200 amp. Here it is. So they give you this document, and this is pretty common. Like, you don't have to be, read schematics to look at this. It looks confusing first, but they're all just in blocks, and so it's like little block diagrams. Like, here's your strings of panels, and it has all the details you need. What type of wire to use for this particular system. This is called a one line. Then you just follow it around, and you can make. I just used this and basically made my the small changes I needed. I'll show you that in a sec. And they do a 3-line diagram. All the examples and notes are here. Make sure that you include the important notes. The only thing hard about this portion was doing these fault calculations, which are over here. That's where I guess my math education helped out a little bit. I did a kind of backwards reverse engineered what my fault calculations would be. Um, but I don't even really know if they looked at this. I'm pretty sure they didn't check it out, but they were there. And so then you have a site diagram, which just shows the drawing of your house. The site plan has to be to scale. You have to take these documents along with some others that are listed in the installer's guide. Um, it tells you what documents you need. There's checklists at the APS website that says here's what you need to get your permits and stuff like that. Documents guides, so residential diagram checklist, stuff like that. It takes a little while to get all this stuff familiar with it, but it's not too bad really. And when you're talking about saving thousands and thousands of dollars, it's worth reading through it, to be fair. So let me go to my site diagram now. Like I said, I just used this, I downloaded this software called Pencil Tool, and it's free. Doesn't have any sort of watermarks or restrictions or anything weird like that. Google also makes a very in-depth free software that you can use to like basically do architecture design or draw plans for houses and stuff. So this first one here, like just like the example, is my one line diagram. Basically, there's a few differences. I didn't have a combiner box because my inverter had can accept 3 strings, and it had Wi-Fi modules and stuff like that. My fall calculations over here. My 3 line diagram, you can tell it looks a lot like the example from APS, which is good because you have you have a few things you have to do. You have to take your plans and documents down to the county or the city to get a building permit. That costs about $300, and it only takes about an hour. And then you have to go through the steps on the installer website a little bit more, and turn in your permits, and then you gotta do the installation, and then you gotta have an inspection from the county or city, and then APS has got to come out and put your new meter in. So here's the site plan, and this is to scale. You can get your drawings of how big your property is and how big your house is from the county, as long as you can go and type in your address and it shows you your setbacks and things like that. You can also just go out and measure them. In this case, like I said, these are correct, and it has sizes and things in the software so you can get your lines right. It's a little tricky getting these panels onto the house because, trigonometry, this is not actually the distance between, the side of the roof and the peak is not the distance because we're changing elevation. So I had to try to make my panels correct using a little bit of trigonometry there. But all of these little vents and things actually helped out to put them on here so you'd have an idea of where to put stuff, um, where to put panels when so you can avoid these without having to move them. So you don't want to make a bunch of modifications to your roof. So yeah, I just took this, printed it to PDF and took it down to Office Max, and I said, hey, I need, for example, this section to be 4.08 inches because the scale is 1 inch to 10. That's an acceptable scale to the county. You can do it smaller, but it becomes hard. I think this is kind of like the standard one. So just follow the example on the APS website, and you'll need to turn in these documents to both the county and to the power company. There's also lots of tools out there, like if you contact the tile roof hook company, they can tell you things and give you some help and resources. Solar wholesale companies are more than willing to make you a little drawing, just like the solar installation companies, on where they would put the panels and stuff, and they can give you a parts list and things like that. That's what I did a lot. And then you can go to sites like this one, which is Iron Ridge, which was my mounting rack gear, and they have a design tool, and you basically, it's really cool. You can just draw in what your panels look like on each side of your roof. So like this is my west side panels, and then it tells you how long they are, how many hooks you're going to need, truss hooks, and how many rails, how many bolts, how many ends caps, grounding clamps, splices, the whole deal. And this site also has lots of instructional videos on how to put that together. So that was a cool thing to have. But like I said, the solar wholesale company would also do this for you. Do I think that lots of people should try to do the owner installed? I think it should be an option because, like I said, I saved a whole lot of money, and to be fair, it seemed a lot easier than I expected for most of it. I was expecting to be, very difficult for the install, and it actually went pretty smooth for most of the time. Of course, I was also learning as I went because it's the first time I tried this, but the APS and the county, when they came to do my inspections and do my D-rate of my panel box, they were like, "You're doing this yourself? I've never heard of anybody doing that." And I was very surprised. So I'll get into the videos of basically how the installation went. So thanks. So here I am at the county trying to get my fast track permit for the solar and active stuff. So I'm just waiting to be seen. Number one, so should be the first one to get seen. Hopefully everything goes well. Alright, well, here it is, my permit from the county, ready to do the solar install. So it took about an hour once I had everything in and paid. I finally got all the panels, and then there's my rack system down there, some panel boxes, inverter, all of the fittings and everything. So ready just to get going. So I figured before it gets too late I'd show how I do these solar hooks. So I've decided my truss is right here. I need to go underneath this one so the bracket will hang out underneath. So this is how you get these tiles off. Pick it up. And that's it. Set it upside down for now. There's some rocks in there. I'm cleaning out my area so my glue will hold down reasonably. So put this right here, which is where it's gonna go. And my drill. I'm gonna drill some pilot holes. Make sure that I've got my trusses right there. Feels pretty solid. Okay. Take that off for a sec. Put that back in. Okay. Get some caulking. Caulk where my bolts are gonna go, my lag bolts here. Get my screws. Change my bit back to the nut driver. Okay. Alright. My first one. Second one. I like to test them again with a socket just to make sure they seem like they're tight. They sure do. Because, my drill battery is a homemade battery, so you never know how powerful it is at any given time. Alright, so that's that. So now I just gotta do the hard part. Just getting well, actually before I do that, I'm gonna grind out my notch for where that hook's gonna come out. Okay, that's a diamond tip angle grinder blade. Now go ahead and try to get this one back in there. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. There it went. Slide it down until it hits the ridge, and there you have it. Golden. Okay, here's all the racks attached to the roof all the way down there. There's 4 rails, or 4 sets of rails, 8 panels going up here. Those microinverters installed, those were super easy. It's just one single bolt that goes through the back of the microinverter. It's not a microinverter, it's an optimizer, sorry. And a little star washer that goes underneath that. So in between the optimizer and the rack, it's a little star washer, and then you just tighten those down with that bolt. And then the microinverters connect to each other. So I went from that bottom one first down there to this one above it, then to the one beside it, and up to the one over there, up to the one over there, over to this one, down to the middle again, and over to this side. And I made a PV extension wire that goes from that one back down all the way to there, where the wires are going to come off the front of the house there. So I know it's looking a little crazy with all those cables, but when I get the panels up here, which is what I'm ready for now, there's little wire clips that clip all the wires to the side of the rail. Kind of nice. And the panels just plug right into those optimizers, so, and you can't mess them up. The genders are opposite, so that you can't plug them in backwards. And that's it, really. I will get another video with those installed. Okay, here's the south side finished up pretty much. I think I have to level one of those rails though. It's a little bit crooked right there, but it's okay, still collects on just the same. And just finished the west side. Scary part down there by the edge, so kind of a pain, but the lift makes it nicer to get the panels up here. Yeah, okay. This is the last panel putting on. And so this is this array to the east side. It's the biggest array that I have because I had the most room on the roof without vents. And so these last ones have a little end stopper, and the bolt just goes into the rack, and the end stopper goes towards the outside, and it gets tightened down to about 250 inch-pounds. And then the middle ones just go over both of the panels, and they ground them together, and that's what it looks like. So, because they're not plugged into the inverter, I should be able to measure the output voltage at the very ends and see 13 volts or so at the ends. That means the optimizers are working right. Alright, so that's that. Here's the south side, very dirty because of the rain, and here's the west side. So there you go. Alright, so I'm running my first piece of conduit from this closest string here over there, and what I got is this awesome bend here that I did, and so it goes right there, kind of underneath the panels, which are right there. You see those cables hanging out. Goes underneath the panels with that 90, comes down, goes off the roof right there, and straightens out to the wall right there. It's where I wasn't going to get the cable through it because everybody says, if you bend 290s, you can't fish this cable through. But it was actually very easy. So, good. Alright, I've got all my conduit run. As you can see, it's routed over the side of my house. All 3 strings down, turns, and then it goes into a junction box that basically just joins all those cables into one larger pipe, or EMT, down along my door to my inverter. That's a 10,000 watt inverter from Solar Edge with the Wi-Fi card I bought has a DC disconnect switch right here, which is great because it's easy to turn off the solar panels to your system. And the AC switch right here to turn on the AC. And then APS wants like super redundancy for whatever reason. There's my AC disconnect switch. It's the fused one. It's off right now because yeah, there's my fuses and my cabling and wiring's already hooked up. From here on, I use 6-gauge cable because I have a 60 amp circuit maximum. The inverter only puts out about 45 optimally, 45 amps, or 220 or 240 volt. There's my photovoltaic meter, which I totally didn't want because there's also one inside the solar panel or the solar inverter. But APS forces you to have this. Want to watch you. They'll come and install the meter portion of it when they do their inspection. Then they have another utility disconnect here that will be locked that they can turn off the service. That one is non-fused. And then it goes down here into my panel. And APS will also change out that meter to be a bidirectional one when it's done. So I am waiting now for, I gotta schedule my inspection. Gotta get my safety labels. I'm going to go print those off, make sure they're weatherproof, and then put those on everything. Got to install my 60 amp breaker down there at the bottom of the panel. I have to derate my panel because my panel main breaker plus my solar cannot exceed 120% of my service, which is 200 amps. So I had to derate my main breaker down to 175, which means I got to get APS out here to turn off my service so I can do that. Also, you have to stay away from gas and water, at least 36 inches and all this stuff. Alright, so here's everything wired up and labeled. I don't know if I showed these already yet or not, but I need to, I already passed my final and my derate. So inside here I had to have APS come out and pull out that meter, and they had to have the county inspector here at the same time, otherwise they wouldn't shut off the power, which was hard to coordinate, needless to say. But this was super easy to change out. You just have to have a torque wrench and torqued it to a 250 inch-pounds, which it says right on top of there, and as long as the power's off, no danger in that. All these labels I got from APS's website. They have to be printed, or they have to be actually made the right sizes, and they tell you where all of them go. I ended up, most of these guys print, or I mean they make tags and like engrave them. I found at the NEC code that you can print them, or you can make them be stickers or adhesive mounts. And so I went to get some labels. I printed them in my printer, and then the rules are that they have to be weatherproof and UV resistant. So I found some Gorilla tape that is UV resistant and weatherproof, super easy to use, and the inspector said never seen anybody do it. He looked up in his code book, said that's good to go. So he passed us. This meter has to have a glass on it, otherwise he won't pass that. And then the conduits have to have this warning label like every 10 feet or something like that. It's kind of crazy. So here's my service disconnect. This is the one that has the fuses in it. Everything's off right now, but I did just try it, and my inverter turned on, it activated, it started it paired with the power optimizers, and it started producing 1,000 watts just sitting here. Of course I had to pay for that because I don't have my meter yet, because APS hasn't, they take their sweet time. So there's more of the labels going up and over. So we are now just waiting on APS to finalize and come out and plug in my bidirectional meter. So I painted the conduits because HOA sent me a list things when they approved the installation. So it's close to the same color, I guess. It's just whatever I had inside. And it goes all the way up, and it's painted on top of the roof too. So couldn't paint those warning signs, you know, because gotta have them visible. None of the other neighbors actually have any other conduit painted, so I don't know if that was necessary, but I'm just waiting around for APS now. So when you're doing solar, it's a good time to go ahead and replace any broken tiles that are on your roof. I came down here to this tile boneyard and grabbed 5 tiles just like mine. Not a lot of people sell them individually, so I just went back and found some over there in that back corner that match my size. And then yeah, it's a bone yard for tiles here, so pretty cheap. I guess they're like $3 a piece, so better than having somebody come out and do it. So I'll finish painting those just kind of so they'd mix in and with the roof, because the HOA decided to send me a letter when I applied for these that said must make sure everything is the same color. You can't really see because of the sun right now, but yeah, didn't do a great job. It's just so it blends in a little bit. So I'm all done up here. I replaced that tile that's down here and a couple tiles down there that I cracked when I was walking around. So now next thing is I'm just going to come up here and clean these off a little bit before I turn everything on, or before I get everything turned on. So alright. Okay, just finished pairing the optimizers, and now it's saying warming up or waking up, remaining 10 seconds. So hopefully after the end of this it should start producing power. Okay, it's producing power. 3,000 watts, 4,000 watts. I did this same process with the inverter that is over here, and it just burned up right there. You see, it smells like crazy, and I was very concerned that I did something wrong. Checked everything, contacted SolarEdge. They said that they didn't think I did anything wrong. Warranty replaced my inverter, and here it is again. Fan's kicking on. Okay, let's go see what the production meter says here. Got the arrow pointing to the grid. So see this arrow? That's pointing back to the grid, meaning I'm putting power back out to the grid.